If you're a teacher that just started using Zoom and is looking for virtual classroom management tips, then keep watching. In this video, I'm going to be going over 5 tips or tricks or hacks, whatever you want to call them, for managing your Zoom online sessions so that your online classroom doesn't go off the rails. And just like you would want to maintain proper classroom management in your face-to-face classroom, it's also equally important to have classroom management when it comes to our virtual learning space. Tip number 1, mute all participants upon entry. It can be a bit overwhelming when you have 20, 50, 100 students talking at the same time. By using this feature, you can prevent unnecessary distraction, reduce echo, reduce feedback noise. Of course, you can always unmute students if necessary. For example, if they're asking a question or they're doing student-led presentations. Now, if you forget to turn this feature on in your online browser, you can always do that during your session. There's actually a mute all participants option that you can select after the students have already joined. In order to do this, you're going to go ahead and log into your Zoom online portal. You are then going to click on Settings and the Schedule Meeting tab. Underneath the Schedule Meeting tab, you're going to select or find the Mute Participants Upon Entry option. Now, here it says that this option automatically mutes all participants when they join the meeting, which is exactly what you want to do. So you're going to go ahead and turn this option on, and now you have your students muted when they enter your session. Tip number 2, use the chat box to track your attendance. So I'm not sure about your schools, but in mine, I am expected to take attendance. Students are expected to join my virtual session. Attendance is actually mandatory. So it's really useful to have some attendance taking option. Is that even a word? But basically, even though Zoom comes with really cool features, and one of them is tracking attendance and even tracking attention of the students, unfortunately, a lot of these features are not available in the basic or the free account. If you do have a basic account and you still want to manage or take attendance, don't worry, there's a way to kind of work around that. What you can do is you can ask your students to log in with their first and last name, and then you can have them say hi or hello in the chat box. And since chats are saved, you now have an attendance report. Tip number 3, make use of those nonverbal signal options that are available in your Zoom session window. Now, I teach almost 100 students, so having them all verbally communicate with me during a session can be a bit overwhelming. A great way to still have students be able to participate non-verbally is to use the nonverbal signaling options that are present in your Zoom chat or Zoom session page. This awesome feature allows you to do so many things. You can do like a nonverbal check-in with the students at the beginning of the class, ask them how they're feeling. You can do a check-in at the end of the class, almost like a nonverbal exit ticket, to ask the students if they understood or how well they feel about the comprehension of that day's session or that day's topic. You can also use the thumbs up, thumbs down feature as a very simple formative assessment during your lecture or during your session. Students can also ask you to slow down or speed up depending on how fast you're going during your session. You could also have students utilize the raise hand option. That way, if they have a question, you can become alert to that. Now, there are several nonverbal cues available for students and for yourself as well. Basically, they'll be able to see something similar to this. However, they will also have the raise hand option, which I'm not seeing for myself, I guess, because I'm a host. So you can see things like yes, if you're asking a question, they could use yes, they could use no to answer it. You can use that for like a quick formative assessment, like I was mentioning before. You could also have, if you click more, they can do thumbs up, thumbs down. Again, great for formative assessments, great for beginning of class check-ins to kind of see how they're feeling. Or even almost like an exit ticket. So at the end of the class, you can ask them if they understood the topic or not, and they can give you a thumbs up, thumbs down, and you can kind of gauge how well the class is doing comprehension-wise before leaving. There's also a clap. Let's say your session is super long and the students are feeling tired. You can ask them to choose this option, need a break. So let's say someone wants to use the bathroom, just like you would in a typical classroom, they could go ahead and ask for a break, or that they, have left to go to the toilet or whatnot. So if the students wants to clear, let's say they put no and now they want to get rid of that, they could go ahead and click this button, which is clear all. If you've updated your Zoom, you will also notice this, which is the reactions. So you can do things like clap. Let's say the student is presenting something and they did a really good job. You can do the clap, or other students can do the clap. They can do a thumbs up, same thing. So these are all great nonverbal signals, in addition to the raise hand, which again, I'm not seeing because I don't think it's available for hosts. But the students should be able to have a raise hand option. So these are all great nonverbal feedback tools that you could use to increase meaningful participation during your session. Now for me, because again, I teach so many students, having each student ask me a question verbally can be really time consuming. So instead, I will ask them to write their questions in the chat box, and then I can address their questions either at the end of the session altogether, or I can just dedicate a kind of like question and answer session during another day. Tip number 4, use the gallery view option. It's really easy for students to kind of get distracted or start looking at their phones or kind of look at things that are going on around them while you are doing your virtual discussion. So to ensure that the students are actually listening to you during a maybe lengthy discussion segment that you're conducting during your session, you can ask them to turn on their cameras during this time. You can then select the gallery view option in the Zoom session box. This way, you'll be able to see all the students at once and keep track of those students who are maybe distracted or not fully attentive with you. You can then private message these students and kind of alert them, hey, you might want to refocus, just like you would do in a normal classroom. Tip number 5. Change your chat settings. Now, by default, I think that the Zoom chat settings is people are able to send chats to everyone in the session. So basically, if a student types something in the chat box, everyone else, all the other students can see them. So this gives an incentive to students who like to be funny or silly to kind of write inappropriate things in the chat box, which can get your other students riled up, distracted, and you don't want that. You can go ahead and change the chat settings so that the students can only message the host, meaning that if they write something in the chat box, you're the only one that can see it. And a student is much less likely to write something silly if the teacher is the only one seeing it. In order to change your chat settings, you're going to go ahead and click on the chat down below. And then here where you see these 3 little dots, you're going to change this option so that it is host only. So that way the participants can only chat with you as a host. And this means that the students can't send chat publicly for everyone to see. You're the only one that can see that chat. So there you have it, 5 tips and tricks for having more control over your Zoom classroom, making your Zoom classroom more silly student proof. If the tips I gave were helpful and you'd love to see more, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great one.